Welcome to the Libertarian Counterpoint. I'm Richard Fields. On the program today, Matt Fleming, Capitol reporter for Cal Watchdog, and John Cameron, author of Rewire and Rekill, and PLF development officer. We're on YouTube, we're on the TV at Channel 17 in Sacramento and elsewhere, and we're on the web at accesssacramento.org. Go to Channel 17. The big news in the last week is the fact that the email controversy for Hillary Clinton is now over. She has not been charged by the Justice Department, in spite of the fact that FBI Director Comey said that her use of email on her own server, et cetera, is reckless and sloppy, the way that she handled State Department email on her private server. John, is this the same kind of treatment that you would have gotten had you done something similar while you were in, say, the military?
No. Do you want me to expand on that? I think actually during his 15-minute takedown at the end when he said, we're not, charging you, I think the phrase, if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't realize they were breaking the law also was used and bandied about by a number of people. So let's go back to, first of all, if I were to violate, if you're in a position where secrets that are covered under the Official Secrets Act, and I'm guessing that the head of the State Department probably had a few of those. If not, why do we need a State Department? And you put that information at risk, you are by definition violating the Official Secrets Act. So
I thought that was English. Are you sure it's
we have
same thing?
A
Okay.
very, very similar. If it's called something else, it's because I've been watching too much English TV with my British wife. So if I call it something wrong, I blame it on Britain, as we do everything wrong with the U.S. other than Democrats. So if you're in a position where you do something to expose secrets, you are violating your agreement to keep those secrets safe. So we're not even talking about all the lying, where she's repeatedly said she's done one thing and then proven 3 minutes later to done another, because you're also, as a government employee, not supposed to lie to the government about what you're doing, which is another crime. If I were to do the same
Martha
thing...
Stewart would identify with that.
Yeah. Martha Stewart went to jail for...
Lying to the FBI.
Lying to the FBI.
Yeah.
Hillary has lied repeatedly to the FBI, and she's not going to jail. They're not even bringing that up. Now, the other thing that's going on here is that it's pretty obvious that the guy wants to keep his job. And so, and he wants to stay alive and not wake up with a horse's head in bed with him and all the rest of that. So this is really double standard at its worst. Because what's the guy's name? Assange? That
Julian
did the
Assange.
WikiLeaks thing? Okay, in essence, he's being pursued for taking secret information and putting it out on the web. Hillary took secret information and made it available on the web. And if you wonder why we've done so many stupid things out of the State Department recently, maybe the fact that everybody and their brother who could hire a decent high school hacker could get into the server. Now, there's no proof that anybody did, but if I was...
Other than that guy, Goosey, whatever his name,
who
who
says
claims
he's hacked it, yeah.
And one thing Comey did say that was kind of startling was that a Gmail account would have been more safe than what she was using. He did specifically say that.
Did he say it?
Yeah.
So basically, he's doing one of two things here. He's either saying, I fear for my life, and I'm not going to be the one who tries to get her arrested for doing anything because that laundry list of all things she was doing wrong took like 15 minutes. Wasn't it about a 15-minute speech?
Yeah, and he said, and we're not going to charge her because we don't think there was intent. But let's take a look
Intent.
at let's take a look
Intent.
at.
But see, intent with anybody else.
Let's take a look.
Well, there was an incident in Folsom that I think was prosecuted last year where a naval reservist got caught for doing a lot less. I think he took some classified information, put it on his personal computer, took it somewhere, and was like, I don't know what he was doing, but they found him with intent, and he was.
I
He
have
had no
jail.
intent.
He had no intent, but he went to
no
jail.
intent, but he went to jail.
Yeah, I have two conflicting trajectories on this topic. First trajectory is let's just look at the timeline. Back in 1992, when the Clintons were being investigated for, I forget what it was at the time. Whitewater's one of the early Clinton scandals. One of their defenders, one of the defense attorneys for the Clintons, was somebody by the name of Loretta Lynch.
Yeah.
Loretta Lynch, of course, is now the Attorney General. Loretta Lynch had a private meeting on an airplane, a private airplane,
on
the tarmac in Phoenix about a week ago, and talked about grandchildren, don't you know? As in, I think you'd like your grandchildren to survive, wouldn't you, Loretta? Anyway, we don't know what was said, but we can imagine.
Sure.
1 week later, approximately, Loretta Lynch says, well, I'm going to recuse myself from overruling whatever the FBI recommends. And then shortly after that, Director Comey stands up and says all of the reasons, gives a whole 50-minute laundry list of all of the reasons why Hillary should be charged, and then says, but we're not going to do it because of lack of intent. Now, that's the storyline that has every conservative, every person who doesn't like the Clintons really up in arms and upset and
if I only had a brain.
Just understandably really angry. There's another storyline, which is this: why in the world, in a democracy, in a Republican, in a republic, do we need to have what amounts to, I think it's the English language Official Secrets Act? Why do we have secrets? Why is the government allowed to have any secrets at all? Why in the world is it against the law for information that the government has not to be public? I have a problem with that.
Huge problem with it, and
But
if
that's the case, if that's the case,
Yeah.
then Hillary is simply being civil disobedience.
civil libertarian. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other part to that is
That means
why
that you'll vote for her, correct?
Of course not.
why do we have a State Department?
Well-
Why don't we just? Well, first of all, if we're going to have a State Department, let's go back to calling the Department of Defense Department of War. And why don't we just call the State Department by its title? A bunch of amateurs mucking about in foreign policy they don't understand and ruining the world for Americans as we know it. Because we are really, really, really bad at this stuff. We're
It
the laughing
it
stock
depends
of
upon
the world.
how you define good and bad. If you're defining good and bad as the best interests of the American people, bad is, I think, correct. However, if you're defining it as the best interest of the Clinton machine and the Clinton Foundation and Chelsea Clinton and her sinecure running the Clinton Foundation, I would say that she did an extremely good job of running the State Department, because they've managed to become multimillionaires after retiring from the presidency dead broke. In Hillary Clinton's own words. So she's done a really good of padding her own pockets. She's done a really good job of making sure that she is in, like Flynn, with the deep state, with the large, too big to fail banks, with the titans of the defense industry, with you name it, anybody with deep pockets. She is in bed with them. And will do their bidding, no questions asked. Yes, sir. No, sir. I, sir.
Write a big enough check and I'll do anything.
So,
Pretty much.
But
Yeah.
even still, with the government deciding not to take any kind of formal action against her, and whether that's right or wrong, I feel like it's kind of what we talked about earlier. It feeds the narrative that politicians and the extremely well connected and the government don't have to play by the same rules as everyone else. And I feel like this, at a very basic level, this is the thing that Americans hate.
Absolutely, it's a double standard, with absolutely nothing that even Rice is close to comparing with it.
Yeah.
This is the reason that Trump is doing
Exactly.
as well as he is, even though he sticks his foot in his mouth seemingly
Daily.
every other day. This is the reason that, moving on to another topic, Brexit was the Leave vote won. The establishment in Great Britain, the City of London, they were virulently opposed to leaving the European Union. They didn't want to do it, but they did. The Leave vote won. The reason the Leave vote won is because in the poor industrial sections outside of the City of London in England, they were hurting. They were having problems with immigrants, problems with keeping good jobs, problems with industry being supplanted by other countries in the south of Europe or in Germany or elsewhere. They were working class folks that had been left behind by the European Union imposed economy, and they were angry, and they said, let's do something about it. And whether or not Brexit makes a whole lot of sense economically doesn't make any difference. They voted to make a change. That same visceral need to make a change is what drove the Sanders campaign and is what is now driving the Trump campaign. In fact, a lot of Sanders supporters are saying now they'll vote for Trump.
Well, let's talk about, if we can for a minute, Brexit aside from kind of a mirror image of the thing that's supporting Trump. Because if you look at who is saying that Brexit is a horrible thing, it's the same kind of insiders that we're talking about that are in bed with Hillary. It's the statists in Belgium. It's the people who are all about central government and control. If you look at Britain has done such a good job, even as part of European Union, in righting its ship, even though they had cradle to grave welfare that the socialists here would dream about, that they had a projection running that was pretty solid, that by the year 2020 they would have a balanced budget. Now, this is in spite of the fact that they're net sending the equivalent of about $400 million US a week out to European Union. They're paying for Greece, they're paying for Italy, they're paying for Portugal, they're paying for Spain. So Soros, of course, because he's the central control, if his socialists are in charge, he's making money, playing both sides against the middle, says that it's horrible and it's going to destroy their economy. But England is the opening into Europe. The Europeans aren't going to put up trade tariffs, they aren't going to put up barriers, they aren't going to do all the rest of that stuff. I mean, they don't even have it with us, and we're 4,000 miles away, 3,000 miles away. So all of the horrors they talked about are really back to this kind of the socialist state of good old boy, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, that the Brits are saying we don't want any part of. And they're riding on the backs of that wave that you talked about, which is the popular sentiment that just in the city of London, you have to speak Polish to work in the hotel industry in London, because you're not going to find anybody with an English accent working there. Has it been great for young kids from Poland? Yeah. Would the kids from England work those same jobs? I don't know. But so there's a couple of things going on here, and I agree with you that the same kind of sentiment that got the English to say, let's get out of here, is working in Trump's favor, and let's hope it's going to work in Gary Johnson's favor as well.
Yeah, I was wondering that too, if this is, because people have made this argument that Brexit's good for Trump, or that it could be good for Trump, but it could, for the same reason why it would be good for Trump is the same reason why it would be good for Gary Johnson. It'd be interesting to see who can tap into this a little bit better. But I mean,
unfortunately, I don't see it working all that well for Johnson, because a big part of the Brexit argument, a big part of the Trump argument is nativism, anti-immigrant, and Johnson, to his credit, is full bore. Let's make the illegals legal, give them work permits, and not do all of this, not pay lip service to the anti-immigrant sentiments that are probably the core support of both Brexit and Trump.
And I absolutely agree with you on that, Richard. And I want to say that, the key to winning in politics is picking the right fight and picking the right message. And if he can find a way to tell the story of the Brits leaving behind the socialist state and being within 4 years of a balanced budget, and if they can do that, take apart the Raj, the cradle-to-grave welfare state that was built in socialist Great Britain after World War II, when all the soldiers came back enraged about the class differences, the rich having everything and them having nothing. They had their taxes go up to effectively over 100% in some cases, the huge death duties, and have that slowly over the years be taken apart. Then I think there is a piece of it that he can use in his message.
Well, if he's skillful, that's true.
Well, I think he's going to be skillful.
Well, we'll see.
Going to have some help.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that's happening, we're talking about economics, and the economics of Brexit, I think, it's too soon to tell. It's hard to say. How exactly what the divorce settlement between Britain and the rest of the European Union will be. We don't know the details yet. Won't for a couple of years, if then. So it's hard to say. But you know that the City of London, the financial industry, which is headquartered there, you know that the British Defence Forces, which are pretty much in alignment with the American Defence Forces, they're not particularly happy because, well, they're just not. And speaking of the Defense Forces, they got to be worried about Obama's promise to pull out of Afghanistan. Oh, wait, he's not. Obama has decided not to pull out of Afghanistan by the end of his term. He's decided instead to leave 8,400 troops in Afghanistan till the end of his term, breaking his promise to withdraw. Of course, that's down from about 100,000 troops. But on the other hand, the Taliban now controls more of Afghanistan territory than since back in 2001. I mean, we have spent an untold fortune trying to do, I don't know what.
And a fortune in lives.
I don't know what in Afghanistan, not to mention Iraq, and we're exactly where we started.
Well, that's why I say we're really bad at this foreign policy stuff. From all perspectives, other than
Lockheed Martin or Raytheon.
Other than feeding the military-industrial machine, which Dwight David Eisenhower warned about in the 50s. Other than making sure there's enough turmoil in the world to where Bill and Hillary's Arab buddies have us over an oil barrel, we're really bad at it. So I think when you brought up, that when we were talking about Hillary, that they've certainly done everything to feather their own nests. I think you have to look at who, even if from a perspective of policy and procedure and American lives and spending money, follow the money, who benefits. And you're talking about the Lockheed Martins, you're talking about the military-industrial establishment, and you're talking about politicians who like to play with expensive toys.
The running dogs working at the behest of the top dogs. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest stories in the last couple of days is a couple more shootings by police, white police officers shooting black people who, on film, apparently were not doing anything illegal or wrong or aggressive or anything else. I'm talking, of course, about Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who was shot while on the ground with police officers on top of him, shot 4 times and killed. I'm talking about Philandro Castile, who was driving his car with his girlfriend. He was stopped because of a rear light broken, and did exactly what a driver should do. He notified the officer. He said, I just need to let you know that I do have a concealed weapons permit, and I want to make sure that you're aware of that. He was asked for his ID, reached for his wallet, and was shot. Was shot by the police officer and allowed to bleed out while the police officer was pointing the gun at his girlfriend. Obviously, the Black Lives Matters people and the others who are incensed about this sort of thing are protesting in Washington probably as we speak, as they should be. What in the world are we doing when the police need more policing than the criminals? We now have a society where asset forfeiture brings in more money for police departments than robbery brings in for bandits.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely. I glanced over both of those incidents that you were talking about, and I'm not too familiar with them. But my first reaction is probably the same reaction as most people, in that we can already guess that the story is going to end up the same. Police probably won't be held accountable. It'll be just another story. There'll be no real meaningful reforms, and it's not fair to overly criticize police, because most of them, at least in my experience, are just doing a good job.
Well,
but at the same time, there's no real accountability.
We with white privilege, I get stopped every once in a while, and I never have a problem.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that if my complexion was a few shades darker, that might not be the case.
Well, that's true, but I mean, we'll say this: most police aren't out there killing people.
Yeah.
That we know of.
That we know of.
I absolutely agree.
But when there's these kinds of incidents, I mean, there's always talk of change, but there's never is any real change. I mean, just getting body cameras alone has, taken an act of God, basically, and then to be able to get the footage takes an act of another God. I mean, it's just, there's no real meaningful reforms ever, and everybody knows how this story is going to play out, and it's just going to happen again. And that may be a cynical way of looking at it, but I would imagine that's how most people look at it.
I'm sure that's the case, but I think it's important to know that the ACLU, among others, have put out iPhone applications, apps, uploads that you can put on your phone that will live stream the video to the web, to an ACLU site, so that the cops can destroy your phone, but the video is not destroyed. I think that's a good sign. I think it's important to understand that this is not anything. What we're seeing in police enforcement misbehavior, I don't think is anything new. I think that what's new is the fact that it's actually being recorded now, which didn't happen before iPhones and Androids. That's
probably true. Yeah, each time there's an incident, it becomes a bigger and bigger issue, which may seem like the problem's getting worse, but it probably hasn't gotten any worse.
I have two questions in regard to this that are somewhat related. The first question is, why is the NRA not up in arms about these two shootings, especially the one in Minnesota where the guy had a concealed weapons permit and that's why he was shot?
It's interesting.
Where is the NRA?
Well, it's interesting that the gun debate alone is always just silent on these issues.
And the second question is, whenever there's a terrorist shooting, like in Orlando a few weeks ago, the House tries to turn a terrorist incident into a gun control incident, and has a protest in the state capitol with catered meals. But now, when somebody is shot by the police, I don't hear anybody talking about gun control for the police.
Yeah, and there's always exemptions. There's always exemptions for law enforcement. Pretty much in any time you see concealed carry law legislation or gun control legislation, there's almost always exemptions for police. And
there are always they're I think required.
No. But in their private lives too. Law enforcement officers, military, a lot of the time get special treatment.
Yeah.
Because there's this idea that they have specialized training, which is true. And personally, I'm not a gun owner. I don't really have anything to do with it. But I know a lot of people that have grown up around guns, and I mean, maybe they don't have like this great military training, but they have certainly, through a lifetime of usage, learned how to use guns. And it just seems. Where's the gun debate on this?
Well, speaking of gun debate,
actually, I want to give Matt some credit for some original thinking here, because at the beginning we talk about things before the show goes on, and he brought that up this morning, and it's a train of thought that I had never thought about and never heard, and I want to compliment you on some original, clear thinking here, because it pretty much shines a bright light on what the gun control debate really is about. It's about disarming the civilian populace so the Praetorian have power, because there, as Matt pointed out in our conversation before the show, there is never a comment about controlling guns when the Praetorians, when the cops, when
Yeah.
the paramilitary forces are guilty of shooting babies like the FBI sniper, all the rest of that. It's never about the gun. So it's pretty clear that the conversation isn't really about the gun.
It's about
It's
control.
about taking the gun out of the hands of the civilian populace so that those in control can stay in control and take more control. And this really proves your point.
Speaking of taking control, Republican Senator Susan Collins has proposed no fly, no buy as a gun control bill that it's marginally better than what Diane Feinstein has proposed, but not a whole lot. What's wrong with no fly, no buy?
Well, there's a constitutional question. I mean, the Second Amendment is pretty clear about gun rights. I mean, certainly there's some ambiguity and some legal interpretation, but being on the no-fly list requires no judicial action.
Exactly. Being on the no-fly list is j'accuse. If you're accused of being a terrorist, or if you're whispered about as being a terrorist, you can end up on the no-fly list real
It's
easily.
the Stasi
We've
all
had
over again.
we've had congressmen who have showed up or ended up on the no-fly list.
I think all of them should be on the no-fly list.
Well, there's probably good reason there, but
And I mean, to be a little bit of an optimist, I mean, to their point, I think most people, if you were to ask, there are people who are probably terrorists or we think are terrorists, should they be able to go and purchase guns? Most people would probably say, I don't really want those people having guns. But at the same time, there is no due process.
anybody who is a terrorist who hasn't
Yeah.
done an act of terrorism
Sure.
is not yet a terrorist.
Sure,
And
sure.
so what you're doing is you're doing Minority Report. You're doing,
Right.
we think you might be a terrorist, and therefore we're going to prevent you from being.
Profiling.
Well,
and
Profiling.
And so
Yeah.
John Cornyn, another U.S. senator, Susan Collins' bill was sort of a compromise between Diane Feinstein and John Cornyn's bill. And John Cornyn's bill was an additional 3-day wait so that a judge could
Yeah.
review the case. And I mean, again, that to me seems more logical within the confines of the Constitution.
With the weight of evidence in favor of the gun purchaser.
Yeah.
In other words, if the government couldn't prove a case in 3 days, the gun purchase
Which
goes
is pretty
through.
much what our law says. But this, again, you look at asset forfeiture, it's the same thing. There's no conviction of a crime.
Yeah.
There's a presumption on the part of someone who has no accountability, just saying, give me your money and I'll give you back 80% of, you let me keep 20 just because I want to keep it.
Yeah, I mean, people
kind
are
of
getting
thing.
penalized for
And,
carrying cash.
you know, so
That's it. That's the show for this week. We'll see you again next week, same time, place. Same time, same place on the Libertarian Counterpoint on Channel 17 in Sacramento, on YouTube, and on the web at accesssacramento.org. Thank you very much for being part of the show. See you again next week.